So the very, very base level answer is if you're going to be a passive investor, you are passive because you're putting up money, right? You're putting up cash. That's the trade-off of you hear equity versus sweat equity. We will be the sweat equity in that we underwrite the deals, we manage the deals, we do everything.
This is Henry Washington, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
Welcome to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. Are you trying to get out of debt, invest, or just not sure where to start? Then this is the place for you. We discuss different ways to get out of the rat race and build your wealth. Join us on this wild ride to financial freedom.
Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni, and today's guest is Justin Moy. And Justin and I were just having an awesome conversation off camera, and I'm super excited to talk with him today. So Justin, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Welcome.
Mike, I'm excited. I've been listening to the show, and this is a long journey of mine to be on this side of it and meeting you as best face as we can.
Yeah. Awesome. Money Mike. I like that too. I like that. That could stick. That could stick.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm the Average Joe. But hey, look, my middle name is Joseph, so I have claim to the name, right? So it works. But hey, anyway, man, I'm super excited to talk to you again. I want to start things the same way I start every podcast episode. And we want to know more about you. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, share your story. Who is Justin Moy?
Yeah. So, Justin Moy is a lifetime entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16. I started my first business. I got my driver's license. And then I said, Mom, I want to start a business just like Dad. Now, Dad owned a restaurant. And what I loved about my father was he was an immigrant from China, didn't speak English at all when he came over here. Still, even to this day, guy's been here for like 50 years. He speaks like broken English. And he is one of the more successful people that I know because he would just see something and just say, hey, I need to make this happen. I'm going to outwork the problem. And so he had that entrepreneur spirit, that work ethic, because he didn't really have a lot of options, not speaking the language, not having that education to really provide for his family. So I caught that bug immediately from him. And one thing that he said was, he was a small business owner restaurant. He would get a lot of his product from Costco and then bring it to the restaurant. That's how he would serve his stuff. And he said one day to me in passing, it's really tough to get to Costco when I'm running in the restaurant and we need stuff, we're out of stuff. And I said, what if I had a business where I did that? I would just be a same day delivery service to restaurants, delivering kind of restaurant supplies. And he said, that sounds great, do it. It was a disastrous failure. I was not able actually to, as a one-man person, deliver all of these supplies to these different restaurants and keep storage units and drive here and there. And I had a 4-door Camry. I just couldn't do it. But I was so young, I didn't know. And my parents said, I'm really glad that you did it and you failed because you spent whatever, $1,000 of your own money bagging groceries. And now you know what it takes to have that spirit, have that work ethic. Took that into me into real estate sales, which was really the first time I had a successful business being a broker. And once I was in sales, I realized the wealth that was built through ownership. And then eventually I stepped over into the owner side in syndications right now. If your audience sounds like they're familiar with that. But now we're stepping in on the owner side, been doing this where really I introduce people to passive opportunities to invest in apartment buildings. And that is what lights my soul on fire. So that's what I do all day, every day.
Awesome. That's quite a background. And I think a lot of people start off in their first entrepreneurial journey with some type of failure, right? But It sounds like you took that opportunity, right? You took it as an opportunity to fail forward instead of failing backwards and just giving up on being an entrepreneur, right? You just kept pushing and pushing, eventually getting yourself into real estate, right? And one of the things that's pretty motivating about that is the fact that you show people that you can do it no matter how the odds are stacked against you, right? Yep. Now, I was taking notes as you were talking, and it seems like your dad is a very big inspiration for everything that you've done, especially as an entrepreneur, right? I feel like he had a very big can-do attitude, and that kind of got passed down to you. So would you say that it's part of that is the positive outlook and the positive mentality you have when it comes to facing a challenge?
Yeah, I would say it's impossible for the traits of your parents and even your friends and other family members not to rub off on you. And so just knowing that you have to use that to your advantage and just knowing what types of relationships are serving you, what types of relationships are not. I'm extraordinarily fortunate for many reasons. And it's impossible for me to count all the fortunes and the blessings that I have. But one of the big ones is that I had parents that were extraordinarily supportive. And even when my parents had separated and they had gotten back to stepmom and stepfather, they were extraordinarily supportive. So just having that support system really helped. Just like you said, fail forward. I was never ridiculed for my failure. Although I felt that for myself. I felt embarrassed. I was crying in my room as a 17, 18-year-old kid because I just said, what did I do? How embarrassing is this? I failed. I not ever one time for 1 second felt like my parents saw me as a failure, or even my friends or my family who I kept. So that to me was gigantic. I think a lot of people might not have that. And that's why if they hit adversity, they have a hard time recovering because they don't really have that network who is there encouraging them. And so if you don't have that, because not everybody's parents are like that, or not everybody's family is like that, look for that circle. You absolutely have to look for that circle. It's been proven you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. It doesn't have to be family if you weren't served a hand that you like. Go out there and look for that core 5 and really build that network.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It is very important who you surround yourself with, the types of attitudes of the people around you, right? Because it rubs off on you, right? For me, I'm huge when it comes to picking up other people's mannerisms. It's horrible. If I'm hanging out with somebody too much and they say something over and over again, for some reason, I pick it up and I'm like a parrot and I start talking. I'm like, what's going on right now?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I have to catch myself. I'm like, whoa, stop. But It's just so funny that you get absorbed into the group that you surround yourself with. So I couldn't say anything more about how true that is. Now, I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you actually do now in real estate, right? So we saw the journey to get there, but what does it look like right now? So what are you currently involved in? What are some of the projects you're working on? Can you describe some of that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who doesn't know what a syndication is, I'll run you through my very quick 10-second elevator pitch. I help people invest passively in apartment buildings for double-digit returns and some of the best tax benefits this country has to offer. So what I did is once I saw the wealth being created, because when I was a real estate agent, the money was very good. But anybody who's lived that life knows it's transactional. It's transactional and you're always chasing the next deal. And no matter how much money I had, I never felt good. I never felt safe. And because of that, I could never turn it off. And because of that, it started impacting my physical health, my mental health, and my personal relationships. So I decided I need to get out of that. And I served a lot of investors when I was a broker. And I saw the money they were making. I saw the lives they were living. We were closing deals when they were in Japan and Taiwan and Mexico. They were in Europe. And I was like, man, I can't take vacations like that doing this. So I have to step over to that side. I like to go big or go home, and I like to jump into things with both feet. So instead of doing single family, I focus on multifamily, specifically apartment buildings, because the allure of that scale just seems so much more appropriate for my attitude and my style and what I was willing to do to get into the business there. So what we do is we essentially buy large apartment buildings that need something fixed, whether it's actual construction done, whether it's operational, whether it has a bad tenant base and we got to go in there, we know we can clean it out and fill it with great people. We look for something wrong with the property. And then we have investors will invest alongside us for a piece of passive equity in the property. Then we fix it up and we either sell it off or refinance it and we distribute returns. Now, throughout there's a lot of things that you can do. And I know you're getting familiar with this space too, more and more. What I personally love to do is talk with investors. Now, there's a lot of roles in this. There's people on our team who underwrite deals, which is financial analysis. There's people who manage deals, asset management, and make sure the business plan is executed. What I absolutely love to do is talk with investors and work with investors. Now, this sounds really corny, and I know it will because before I stepped into this role, it sounded corny to me. But this was the very first time I ever felt like a job just absolutely lit my soul on fire. And again, sounds very corny. I know it sounds corny, but once I finally stepped in this role, I was like, wow, that's what people meant when they said that. I just love talking with investors. I love the syndication structure pulls down a lot of those very high barriers that present to most people when it comes to real estate investing. And I love the look in someone's eyes when they're like, oh my God, I can do this. I can invest in these high-end assets. And I don't need to be a 1%er. I don't need to have millions of dollars. I don't even need the time or the knowledge. So I just love doing that. I love having conversations just like this. So that's what I spend my days doing.
Yeah, Justin, I absolutely love that outlook. And I really appreciate your explanation there, right? Because yes, people that have been listening to this podcast for a while know what a real estate syndication is, but I always like explaining things in the simplest terms possible because you never know if this is someone's first episode that they're listening to. And the last thing I want is somebody to come listen to one of my podcast episodes and get turned off because they feel like we're talking about stuff that's way advanced, right?
Yeah.
Now, we dig a little bit deeper into some of these things, but the way you just explained the real estate syndications was perfect, right? So I absolutely love that. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things that attracted me to real estate syndications in general. When I was active duty in the Navy, I was doing the single family thing. I was investing back on the mainland. I'm out here in Hawaii. I was investing back in Virginia, right? I bought a duplex out there and everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And I couldn't do a thing about it. I had my general contractor, who was also my property manager, on site. Don't recommend having them be the same person. And everything was through video chats, pictures, and quotes. Here's how much this is going to cost you. And it's, wow, this is really painful. And then when I learned the multifamily side and how I can get in as a passive investor and be hands off while I'm working these 12-hour days in the Navy, I was like, there seems to be something to this. So I wound up selling that, taking some of the profits from that, pulling money out of my thrift savings plan, and then taking out a HELOC on my primary residence. And I invested in 3 different syndications.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I got myself involved in a whole different side of real estate that I never really knew was there.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that there was something else that I think you and I were talking about prior to recording, was that networking aspect and going out and meeting people, because I would have never learned this stuff if I wasn't going out to real estate meetups and meeting other people that do this, or listening to podcasts where they're talking about these kinds of things. So I think that's super important. Now, I want to ask you, especially since you work on the investor relations side, which is something I'm getting into myself right now, how important is it to get out to real estate meetups and go to conferences? Like, where do you see the benefit in that for people in this space?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. First is on the active side, of course, it's very important because you should be well networked in your industry. No matter where you're listening from, even if your industry is not real estate right now, if you're in tech or you're in sales or you're in medical, you will not ever not benefit from knowing people in the industry and being known in your industry. So especially out here in real estate, where ideas are always changing and evolving, best practices are always changing and evolving. And I've taken things that I've learned from conferences and even taken that to our investors and said, hey, this is what we're learning at conferences at a very high level. These are the big economic trends. These are the market trends. These are the employment trends, which is why we are picking or avoiding certain markets. And as a passive investor, you want your active operators to know those things. A couple of things with that is you want them to be very well educated. And I always say education is not something you did, it's something you do. You have to stay educated, whether it's podcasts and books. You don't have to spend a lot of money on conferences, although that is a great way to do it. Podcasts and a lot of books now are free. You could Google most book titles and a lot of them will just come up for free. Most people, like guys like you and me, we love talking to people about this space. That's why we have podcasts. Our friends and family are sick of hearing us talk about it. I have a Calendly link on the website. Like, you just talk to me. It's totally free. So it's super, super important. And if you want to be a passive investor, and I love your story about your duplex, because that's actually one of my favorite things to help people avoid, is because a lot of people take your route, right? Oh, I'll buy a duplex and I'll property manager. They'll do all the work. And then you find out that's just not how it works. That's not how it works. That's not passive investing. There's only certain passive investing strategies, and that's just never how it works out for people. So if you're a passive investor, get out there, shake some hands, meet some people, meet the sponsors who could potentially be the ones managing your money and managing your assets, and really know them intimately. There's a couple of different ways you can invest passively. Some people love huge companies where you could think of like Grant Cardone, where he raises hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll never meet Grant Cardone. Some other people like to invest with smaller organizations where you do know the partners and they do keep things intimate and they do know all their investors by face and name. That's how we prefer to do business. So if that's how you like to invest, get out there and start meeting some people, shaking some hands.
Yeah, I love that. It's important. Get in front of people. Get in front of the people you want to be around and invest with, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
right on. Now, you had mentioned something else while you were going into describing syndications, and I really want to touch on this one too, because this is one of the things I love the most about being a limited partner. Let's talk tax benefits. So what would you say are some of the best tax benefits you get as a passive multifamily investor?
Yeah. So of course, the disclaimer standard, you're going to hear everybody say when they talk to this, I'm not a CPA, right? I'm not a financial advisor, not giving financial advice. And you got to consult your own counsel before making these decisions. But at a very high level, a lot of times our investors are actually seeing their distributions be tax-free, be completely tax-free. So your passive income is taxed differently than your earned income. And the way I see it, the way that I explain to most people is the government and the tax code is less a means of actually generating money for the government and more a means of skewing behavior. So what the government does is they put these benefits in place to entice you to do things with your money. One of those things is to invest it. It's actually one of the worst things you could do for this country, for America, in a free market society, to not have your money circulating in the economy. One of the worst things you could do from a macro perspective is put your money in a bank and just have it sit there or put it under your mattress. That's why the government will actually incentivize you and through inflation actually punish you for not keeping your money out in the markets. So they want you to invest in private industry. They want you to invest in real estate because they need you to. We need housing. It's one of the biggest shortages we have. They want you to invest in oil and gas. They want you to invest in grain and wheat and food production. So they're going to create these tax benefits to make it very favorable for you to do. And they're actually going to punish you by actually creating a certain amount of inflation every year for holding your money or for putting it under a mattress. A lot of people don't know that America, our government actually creates the inflation almost purposefully to keep it at about that 2% to entice people to keep their money out. So you will have really huge tax benefits investing in things that the government wants you to do, and real estate's a really big hot button for them right now.
Awesome. Now, what if somebody came to you and said, I can also get tax benefits by investing in a Roth IRA? By doing it that way, I'm not having to pay taxes when I withdraw in the future. Sure. What are some of the key benefactors of putting that money into a real estate syndication versus into an IRA? Can you explain the difference?
Yeah. So historically speaking, the top line returns are vastly different. The average positioned IRA or 401k or a Roth IRA grosses about 7% annually. That's like a pretty stabilized, well-positioned IRA retirement account. And again, past performance is not indicative of future performance, but historically speaking, guys like us, or even you, when you step on the active side, you're going to notice we're not really pursuing deals unless we're at a conservatively, very conservatively projected 15%. And that's on the lower side. More realistically, we're seeing that be even higher because guys like us are being a little bit safe with those projections. So right there, you're seeing a really big top line benefit. And then, yes, some of those retirement accounts have different tax benefits. Depending on when you think you'll be hit with the most taxes is how most people do those strategies. So Roth IRA, you put post-tax money in there. Then you don't pay taxes in the future, which is helpful if you think that you pay more taxes now than you are more taxes in the future than you do now. So you have to manipulate that system.
Yeah, but you have to be careful with that too, because you don't know what the future tax rate's going to be.
Exactly. And then the thing is, you don't know what the future, what's your money even going to be worth in the future? Is it going to be cash?
Exactly.
Is it going to be the US dollar? Is crypto going to come and take over? And now you just have paper assets, which don't really mean something. So I don't like a lot of what the public market has. I think it served its time definitely in a point where private investments were significantly less available. But now with all the technology, all the education and loosened legal structures like syndications, the options are just so much more plentiful for people to step into the private sector, get greater returns, get greater risk-adjusted returns, and experience simpler tax benefits. And for most people, going to be more favorable. Plus, you get cash flow distributions with it. So you actually get impact on your life now versus hoping you live to be 65 and you don't get hit by a bus at some point between now and then just stocking this stuff away.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Okay, Justin. So I want to ask you now, for the average Joe or Jane that wants to get in their first syndication, what does it take for somebody to actually invest in their first syndication?
Yeah. So the very, very base level answer is if you're going to be a passive investor, you are passive because you're putting up money, right? You're putting up cash. That's the trade-off of, you hear equity versus sweat equity. We will be the sweat equity in that we underwrite the deals, we manage the deals, we do everything. There's no time or knowledge commitment on your part as an investor. All you do is put up money. Minimums for syndications tend to range. I would say most people have a minimum of about $50,000 for your investment. If you're a first-time investor, they're probably loosen that up for you a little bit. We loosen it up for our investors just depending on the deal. But I would be comfortable having about $50,000 liquid, because even if the investment minimum is lower, you want to have cushion, right? You want to wire all your money into an investment. So I would have cash on hand. And then the second thing is, you've got to get out there and you got to meet people and you got to be educated. Yes, it is. You are putting money in a passive position and the operator's handling everything. So most of your due diligence is going to be on that operator. Who are they? What's their experience? What's their experience with that asset class? Because even class A, B, or C operators, they have different strengths. Who are their partners? How long have they been doing it? What's their track record? Do they really run this like a business? Is it a side hustle? You want to make sure you know all of these things. And you really want to make sure you know who you're going to be investing with over the next few years. And a lot of that due diligence is done on the sponsor team, which is a team like us or the operating team, to really make you comfortable with the investment.
Attention, fellow real estate investors. I know you're tired of ineffective marketing strategies that leave your lead generation feeling like a bust. Well, I've got a great solution for you. I've teamed up with Ballpoint Marketing to bring you a fresh approach to growing your business. With their handwritten direct mail marketing, your business will stand out from the crowd. Their amazing writing machines will craft personalized messages for each of your potential clients, making a lasting impression and increasing the likelihood of them responding to your message. They even make pin smudge marks to add to the authenticity. And for those of you that are driving for dollars, one of their most popular offers are handwritten door hangers. Placed directly on the front door, these door hangers show a potential seller how serious you are. With Ballpoint Marketing, you can trust their marketing strategy will be both effective and unique, just like your real estate business. Use my coupon code AVGJOE for an exclusive discount. Don't miss out on this opportunity to grow your real estate business and generate leads. Click the link in my bio for more. Real estate investors know they're leaving money on the table every time they pass a rundown property and do nothing about it. Deal Machine lets you and your team pin distressed properties, look up the property owner on the spot, and send a personalized postcard to the owner directly from the app, all within a few seconds. You can set up mail on repeat to make sure you won't forget to follow up, and while the app is sending a custom postcard, you can look up the owner's phone number and email instantly. Plus, if you want to find even more off-market deals, you can build a team of people to drive for you. You just get to track how many properties your deal finders add every day, making your deal finding a scalable and profitable process. Go to dealmachine.com and use the code AverageJoe, that's AVGJOE, for 15 marketing credits during your free trial. That's AverageJoe, AVGJOE. Let's get back to today's episode. Yeah, absolutely, man. Love that. And comfort is probably the most important word that you mentioned there, right? Because having a good comfort level, no matter what you go into, you have to understand that there's always risk in any investment that you go into, right? We talk about this all the time, whether it's the stock market, real estate, crypto, NFT, whatever it is, even in gold, silver, precious metals, things like that, there's always some type of inherent risk with any type of investment you get into. Getting yourself involved in something that you feel very comfortable with can be huge. And if you have a really good comfort level because you're comfortable with the people that you're working with, right? You build those relationships. I think that's probably one of the most important things is the fact that you said you deal with investor relations, right? So you're building these relationships with your investors, right? So they get to know and trust you, that they know that you have their best interests in mind when it comes to the assets that you guys are looking at onboarding. It's very important also, I would say, for limited partners, for those passive investors, that there is a little bit of active, you have to be a little bit active, right? So for me, the people that I've invested with as limited partners, I always did my due diligence on the operators, right? I wanted to make sure that I could and trust them. At the same time, I also do my due diligence on the assets that we're looking at and just make sure that I'm not just relying on the pitch deck that I was sent I'm sitting here doing my own market research as well. It might not be as in-depth or as good as theirs, but it gives me that warm and fuzzy that, yes, okay, I did look, this does look like it makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and throw my money into this. Because look, 25, 50, 100K, that's not a small number to sneeze at. And that's generally what you're putting into when you're going into a real estate syndication.
Yeah.
I think it's important that comfort, right? That's probably the most important word I think that you said there. 100%.
Yeah. And I think at a certain point, you call it return on headache, not return on investment. And maybe this operator will give you better returns, but God, maybe you just don't have a good feeling about them. Maybe you're constantly reaching out with questions. They're not really updating you. So you're stressed all the time. Maybe they take a couple of days to respond to you. So you're left those couple of days nervous about what's going on. It's not always about, hey, I want to invest in the strongest markets with the strongest, most experienced people. You got to find what you like. And I know we'll talk about this at the end, but I have a podcast, Passive Real Estate Strategies, where I just talk all about these things. How to vet these sponsors. Should you go to the property? Should you do due diligence, or should you rely on them? So you really need to have a full picture of it. And again, it's not always about, I want to invest with the most experienced team in the best market in the country. Sometimes that doesn't really fit your flavor of investing.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, if you're listening to this episode right now and you want to get a little bit more deeper into that side, go listen to Justin's podcast. There'll definitely be a link in the bio for you guys. Yeah, Justin, I think that's huge, man. 100%. Now, speaking of comfort level, let's talk about what the current real estate market looks like today, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of vibes are you getting right now when it comes to today's actual market?
Yeah, I've had this conversation a lot over the past maybe 6 months, and it's totally normal. And that's part of what we do too, is we educate our investors. So we have tons of newsletters going out. We get tons of calls about, hey, asking that exact question. What's going on with the market? Is now a good time? And the one word, my theme for this year for the market is I'm excited. I'm very excited. Now, I'm excited for a few reasons. First is we don't have any short-term loans coming due that are going to put us in a tough spot. Those are the investors who are very excited about this because we know that those are coming up. And what I foresee is we won't do as many deals this year. Our goal was to do about 6. I don't think we'll do 6. I think we might do 2 or 3. I'd be happy with one good deal, really, because fewer deals will come up, but the deals that do come up, they're going to be better. They are going to be better. There's about $350 billion of short-term debt coming due in the next 2 years that is projected to be distressed. So that for people who are buying is exciting news. It's of course not so much if you have some of that short-term debt, which a lot of people do. And it's not a knock if somebody does. A lot of people will have that, a lot of very experienced people. But thankfully, we're in a position where we're shielded from that. And we're going to see a lot of opportunity come up. So I am excited. I think the volume will be less this year for anybody, any niche in real estate investing. The volume will be less, but the deals you do will be better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's just the real estate market in general. Like right now, I feel like we're already there and it's going to get even better, but we're at a buying opportunity right now, right? Because everyone's running scared. And that's the time to get in. When people are fearful, that's the time to get greedy. Warren Buffett said that. Yeah. And it's so true because when you have people running for the hills and you decide to go in, you get to pick what you want, right? So actually, as a real estate agent, that's one of the things I talk with my clients about too is, hey, I understand the interest rate is pretty high, but don't get married to the rate, right? Yeah. You can take the rate on a date, but you want to marry the price, right? You want to marry that property that you want. Right. And then when everything's said and done, and the rates drop back down 6 months to a year from now, you can go ahead and refinance it. Now you just got this property that you really wanted without any competition. I can tell you the market out here in Hawaii gets bonkers. When the rates drop back down, it's going to be crazy again. Mm-hmm. You're going to start seeing multiple bids on one property. Where right now it's, hey, you put an offer on a place, very good chance it's going to get accepted. Yeah. We actually have some properties going for a little bit under asking price, which is unheard of in Hawaii. So that's why I'm telling people this is the time right now. Yeah.
I think it's big too, because when you're in the space of real estate investing, a lot of times you're not working for right now. You're filling your pipeline with opportunities that might be 3, 6 plus months in the future. Mm-hmm. So start getting these things in order now. If you're looking to syndicate, start booking appointments now. If you're looking to buy a property, start looking now and contacting guys like you who are agents in your space. Start looking now because you don't want to wait till the end of this thing think to yourself, okay, now maybe is a good time. And then things start to
Too late.
speed back
Yeah.
up. Yeah, it could be too late. So you're always working for about 6 months in the future here, at least, in my opinion. So start laying that groundwork now. If you don't feel ready now, you feel like you might be ready in about 6 months, now's the perfect time to start.
Yeah, love it. You show up late to the dance, you miss all the good songs.
That's right.
It's just how it works.
That's right.
Now you show up and it's just slow dances and
Yeah.
you're there by yourself. But all right, cool. Hey, Justin, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your perspective, man. This is really good. You have great energy. The way that you look at the market, you're very optimistic, as most people that invest in real estate are, because you see opportunity where other people see fear. And I think that's huge. So I want to go ahead and transition this now into something that I call the final round. It's where I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on this show. And it helps us get a better idea of how Justin is under pressure. So if you're ready to go, we'll get that party started.
Ready.
All right, let's do this. I know you're going to crush it anyway. But hey, Justin, first question of the final round. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made in real estate?
Yeah, I think it was taking the path like you took, and which is, again, why I'm so passionate about educating people on passive real estate strategies. We purchased some smaller multifamily. The plan was we'll buy this. We'll have the property manager who was also the contractor, which I thought perfect. One point of contact, less work for me. And I leaned on that team too much. That team ended up failing us catastrophically. And I don't want to say they failed. It was our property. I failed by doing that. I didn't have the systems in place. I didn't have the bandwidth in place. And I thought I could set it and forget it. And that ended up being a huge mistake. So again, if you're looking for something passive, that's a property manager company is not make it passive. And that's what I thought. So that was my biggest mistake. Thankfully, it was just our property. We didn't have investors in it. But that's something that I always tell people, you can't do that. You have to be involved in these things. And you can't really lean on that property manager as much as you think you should.
Yeah, awesome. I definitely appreciate that. I wish I would have had this conversation with you a couple of years ago before I got started. Awesome. Hey, okay, next question kind of ties into that last one, but what would you say is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first got started?
Yeah, I wish I knew the power of formal coaching or mentorship. I've always been a hard-headed guy. I could figure it out myself. Information's free on the internet, and those things are true. But once I started to actually pay for coaching and mentorship, which again, it's not required, but once I started to do that, my business and my life just exploded. My relationships even got better. My relationships with my investors got better. So for me, I'm a huge fan of that. And I wish I would have known that coming into things. And I'm at the point where no matter what I do, even if it's, hey, how to do podcasts or how to be a better podcast host or guest, I'm going to pay for the opportunity to get to be the best I can in that field, because I've just seen it pay off so much. So I wish I knew the importance of formal mentorships.
Yeah, Justin, I appreciate that perspective too, because I personally also believe in having a good coach or mentor, right? And then also knowing the difference between the two, right? A mentor is going to be someone that kind of helps you and guides you. It's free, right? Where a coach is usually a paid service and they kick you in the butt when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and they hold you accountable, right? A lot of times mentors will hold you accountable too, but the difference is that when you get that coach, they're really going to light a fire up under you. At least I hope that they would, because especially if you're paying for it, I want to make sure somebody's hitting me up and saying, hey, dude, let's go. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
It's the expectation, right? If a mentor is free, I can't really hold you accountable for getting me there. But if I pay 100%. You good money, then yes, I can now hold you accountable. Say, hey, I thought I would get X, Y, and Z out of this. Mentors for me are my good friends. And we text each other, hey, man, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this situation? A coach who I pay, we're getting on a call. We have a structure. We have meeting times. We have meeting structures, and we're going through these problems. Yeah, I love that you said that, because I think that's a big misconception too.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll point something else out too, because I've done a couple charity cases as a coach, and pretty much every single one of them was, they just didn't commit, right? They didn't do what we talked about. They didn't push themselves to accomplish any of the goals that we've set out to. And I noticed the difference between people that actually paid for the coaching versus people that I was helping out for free. And it was uncanny how often the ones that I was helping out for free didn't do what they said they were going to do. Yeah. It's a little bit different when you're paying for something. It's, oh, I don't want to let my coach down because I'm paying this guy. It's a big difference. A lot of people want to stay away from that because they don't want to pay. But at the same time, it's like, it's another way of paying for your education, and it's another way of holding yourself accountable. That's the way I look at it.
And money is a factor of time. Yes, you can learn all these
Yeah.
things on your own. You can listen to all the podcasts and learn these things at some point, but I'm going to beat you on time if I could just text my coach and say, hey, what's the answer to this specific situation I'm in? So you'll get there. You'll still get there no matter what you're doing or who you are. It's just, can I get there faster by paying somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Okay, Justin, enough on that. Let's get to the next question of the final round. And again, these all kind of tie into each other, but do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started out today?
Man, I think I spoiled it with the last one. Yeah, if you can afford formal coaching, I would do it in whatever field you're going to get into. I'm also a really big fan of diving in very deep to what you're doing. So if you're going to be like a real estate investor, that's such a wide field that I'm in the field every day professionally. So are you. If somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I'm a real estate investor, that almost does me no good. I don't even know what that means. You could be a flipper, you could wholesale, you could buy and hold, you could build to rent, you could be a builder, contractor. There's so many things that you can do in this space. You can't really get blindsided. Dive in really deep to what you want to do and be great at it. Even if it's not real estate, if you're a marketer or you want to be in sales, dive in both feet and commit time every single day, even a little bit of time every single day to learning in that field. And that's how you witness exponential growth, that like hockey stick growth where you just shoot up one day and you're like the smartest guy or girl in the room about this topic because you just commit every single day to your craft. So dive in deep to it, and you got to set time aside every day to work on it.
Yeah. Okay. I absolutely love that answer. Probably one of the best answers to that question I've heard, even with it tying into what you previously said, right? But it's that dedication, right? Putting the time and the effort into it is going to be huge. So if you're new and you're just getting started out, dedicate that time, get a coach, get a mentor, take a course that will help accelerate you and push you past the other people that are just trucking along there. So yeah, I definitely love that. Now, Justin, I have the final question of the final round, and I will preface this with, besides your own, since I know you have an amazing podcast as well, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both?
Yeah, so I love podcasts. I love podcasting. I have my own, but I'm actually going to go book on this one. I don't know why, but for me, when I see something tangible, it just makes it so much better for me, to the point where I actually use podcasting to complement what I'm reading. Because if I can read it and then again I hear it, it really clicks for me. I think it depends on the field. Now, I built my life on sales. I'm a really big sales guy. I believe that everybody's in sales. I believe that everybody should know sales. Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort is by far my favorite sales book. It's just a different type of selling that I think help anybody who's in sales or wants to get in sales. Way of the Wolf should be the book that they read. For general life, there was this book called Limitless from Jim Quick. That really set my trajectory right. It's about brain training and how you can focus better and how you can speed read and how you can really optimize different parts of your life. I think everybody should read Limitless at some point. And then anybody who wants to get into sales or just wants to have a better ability to sell something, even personally, Way of the Wolf. So those are my two books.
Awesome. I definitely appreciate those recommendations, man. That's great, because you have something for someone on the sales side and you also have something for just general life balance. And that's awesome. Exactly. All right, Justin, that is it for the final round. However, I do have one more question for you. And this is probably the most important question that I'm going to ask you today, because this amazing conversation that we had probably sparked some interest in some of my listeners, and they want to know where they can find more information about you and what you're doing. So if you could share, do you have a website you could share with us, your social media, and of course, your podcast as well? We're going to make sure we have all these links in the show notes, but please tell us what we can put down there.
Yeah, if you're looking to invest passively in properties, Passive Real Estate Strategies is the podcast. It's all I talk about. There's nothing about operating deals. There's nothing about active investing, all passive. If you want to read more about passive strategies, because just like you had mentioned, and we talked about in the show, investing is really not passive unless you invest in just a handful of strategies. I have a free book for you. It's at thedefinitive.guidebook.com. It's called The Definitive Guide to Passive Real Estate Strategies. And then on there, if you look at that website, download the ebook. You'll get information from me. I'll actually send you a personal video message, and it's not automated. There's no AI. I will personally send you a video message. So you're going to get to connect with me one-on-one. That's going to be the best way to get in touch. So it's thedefinitive.guidebook.com, and the podcast is Passive Real Estate Strategies.
All right, awesome. So like I said, I will have all those links in the show notes. I'm going to make it easy for the listeners to find you. They can copy and paste or click away. Just, hey, if you're listening right now and you're driving, don't do it while you're driving. Thank you very much. So Justin, this has been a real treat. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a blast talking with you, and this was great.
Yeah, Money Mike, thank you so much, man. I'm excited for the show and excited to continue to see what you do in our space too.
Awesome. And hey, before I close out here, I want to ask you, is that a picture of Graham Stephan behind you?
It's Steve McQueen.
Oh, okay.
Steve McQueen, yeah.
Your head was in front of the gun, but it looks like Graham Stephan.
Yeah, no, it's just a piece of art. It has this flat white back wall here, and
yeah.
I don't know, it wasn't that exciting. This is a little sexier.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to reach out to him and let him know that he looks like, from a profile perspective, he looks like Steve McQueen. So
yeah, I love it. That'd be a good compliment.
Awesome.
A lot of people like that guy.
All right. Hey, I just want to say again, thank you so much. And to my listeners, I also want to thank all of you for joining me and our special guest, Justin Moy, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's specific episode with Justin. Aloha from Hawaii, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Average Joe Finances podcast, your source for beating debt, saving money, and investing. Learn more at averagejoefinances.com.